The Iran war has been going on for over a month now. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched more than 900 airstrikes across Iran. Iran's supreme leader was killed. The Strait of Hormuz was blockaded. Oil prices surged past $150 per barrel. The news updates the numbers every day. 15 U.S. soldiers killed, 538 wounded. Over 1,230 Iranian civilians dead. KC-135 refueling aircraft crashed today, all 6 crew members killed. Social media is flooded with footage. Bombed streets in Tehran, Iranian naval bases engulfed in flames, wounded soldiers being carried onto hospital ships. A veteran's PTSD video hit 3 million views. The comments read, "Please get help, why are you still there? Can't you just quit?" The statistics are colder. Between 15 to 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans have been diagnosed with PTSD. The veteran suicide rate averages 17.5 per day. That's twice the rate of civilians. Female veterans are 92% more likely than civilian women. Male veterans are 60% more likely. As of 2025, over 80,000 people are waiting for PTSD treatment. It's clearly terrifying. You could die, get injured and live with disabilities forever, have nightmares every night for the rest of your life. So why don't soldiers quit? When war breaks out, when bombs fall, when comrades die, why don't they just pack up and leave? No contract says fight until you die. No constitution says endure even when you're afraid. Yet now, with the Iran war underway, with 15 dead and 538 wounded, there are no headlines about mass desertions. The soldiers are still there. Every morning they wake up, put on their gear, and go on missions. Why is that? Most people have a ready answer. They say soldiers don't quit because they're brave. They have warrior spirit. They believe in the brotherhood of arms, in never leaving a man behind. They've been trained to push through fear, to stand firm when everyone else would run. That's what makes them soldiers. They're simply made of different stuff than the rest of us. Others say it's patriotism. These men and women believe they're defending their country. They've sworn an oath to protect and serve. Even when the mission gets hard, even when they're scared, they stay because they believe in something bigger than themselves. The flag, freedom, democracy. That sense of duty keeps them going when everything else says to leave. Still, others point to the contract. They signed papers. They made a commitment. The military isn't a regular job you can just walk away from. There are legal obligations, military law, consequences for desertion. You can't just quit the army the way you quit working at a restaurant. These explanations make sense. Soldiers do seem different from ordinary people. They must be braver, more committed, more disciplined. That's why they're there and we're not, right? But there's something strange here. First is the courage paradox. If soldiers stay because they're brave, because fear doesn't affect them the way it affects normal people, then we'd expect them to be eager to serve again, to volunteer for more deployments, to say, "I'd do it all over again." But that's not what the data shows. A 2019 Pew Research survey found that 64% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans said the Iraq War was not worth fighting. Another 58% said the same about Afghanistan. When asked if they understood why they were fighting, 40% of soldiers said they didn't really know. Interviews with returning soldiers tell a darker story. One Iraq veteran said, "I had nightmares every single night. I was terrified." Another, "I counted down every day until I could leave, every single day." The VA estimates that between 15 to 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans have been diagnosed with PTSD. The actual number is probably higher. Many never seek treatment. Over 80,000 veterans are currently waiting for PTSD care. The average wait time is 6 months. If these soldiers stayed because they were fearless, why do so many describe being afraid? Why do so many say they wouldn't go back? Why are tens of thousands living with psychological wounds from their service? Let's look at the patriotism paradox. If soldiers stay because of patriotism and belief in the mission, then the mission should have strong public support, especially among soldiers and their families. After all, these are the people who understand the stakes best, who have sacrificed the most. But look at the Iran war polling. Multiple polls in March 2026 showed that 52 to 59% of Americans oppose the military action in Iran. That's a majority against the war. A Quinnipiac poll found that 74% oppose sending ground troops. Even among soldiers, support is mixed. Here's the striking part. Military families are even more opposed than the general public. Articles from March 2026 describe military spouses as anxious, afraid, and uncertain about why we're even there. Veterans for Peace, an organization of former service members, condemned the Iran strikes in the strongest possible terms. If patriotism and belief in the mission keep soldiers from quitting, why do most Americans, including military families, oppose the war? Why do 40% of soldiers themselves say they don't understand the mission? How can you stay motivated by a cause when even you're not sure what that cause is? Let's look at the contract paradox. If soldiers stay because of legal obligations, because the contract binds them, then desertion should be rare. And when it does happen, it should be punished severely. The military should come down hard on anyone who breaks their commitment. But that's not what the numbers show. During the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, 2001 to 2023, approximately 30,000 soldiers deserted. That's not a typo, 30,000. The military prosecuted about 1,900 cases during that period. That means they prosecuted roughly 6% of deserters. The other 94% received administrative discharges or simply weren't pursued. Even among those prosecuted, very few served serious time. Most received bad conduct discharges and moved on with their lives. The last U.S. soldier executed for desertion was in 1945, over 80 years ago. If the contract legally binds soldiers to stay, why did 30,000 leave? If desertion is such a serious crime, why were 94% never prosecuted? Why does the military seemingly let most deserters go with minimal consequences? 3 explanations, 3 cracks. Courage doesn't explain why so many veterans describe constant fear and say they'd never go back. Patriotism doesn't explain why most soldiers and their families oppose the wars they're fighting. Legal obligation doesn't explain why tens of thousands deserted and most faced no real punishment. So if it's not bravery, not patriotism, and not the contract, what keeps soldiers from quitting when war starts? Let's change the question. We've been asking, why don't soldiers quit? That question assumes the puzzle is about the soldiers themselves, their character, their beliefs, their commitments. It puts the explanation inside the person. We look for what's special about them, what makes them different from people who would leave. But what if we've been looking in the wrong place? Here's a different question. Why is quitting harder than staying? Not why are soldiers brave enough to stay, but why is leaving more difficult than remaining? Not what's special about the people who don't quit, but what makes quitting the harder choice. This isn't just playing with words, it's a completely different way of seeing the problem. The first question looks at the person. The second question looks at the situation the person is in. Let's look at soldiers differently. A soldier during wartime stands between 2 dangers. On one side, the danger of staying, combat, the possibility of death, of injury, of PTSD that follows you home, of watching friends die, of carrying those memories for the rest of your life. On the other side, the danger of quitting, a dishonorable discharge that goes on every job application you'll ever fill out, the loss of your paycheck, the loss of healthcare, the loss of education benefits, being labeled a deserter, being cut off from the only community that understands what you went through. Both sides are dangerous. This isn't a choice between safety and risk. It's a choice between 2 different kinds of risk. So how does someone choose? Here's what happens if you stay. Your paycheck continues. For an enlisted soldier, that's about $2,000 per month, even in a war zone, actually more, because combat zones come with hazard pay. When you eventually complete your service, you get an honorable discharge. That discharge unlocks everything. Lifetime VA healthcare, potentially worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The GI Bill, which covers up to $75,000 in education costs. VA home loans with lower interest rates. Preferential hiring for government jobs. Veterans get an automatic 10-point advantage on federal applications. On your resume, it says honorably discharged veteran. Employers see that as a positive. You get access to veteran service organizations, networking groups, people who understand what you've been through. Here's what happens if you quit. Your paycheck stops immediately. You lose your health care, no more military medical, and now you're uninsured. The GI Bill. Gone. You were counting on that to pay for college or trade school. Now you're looking at student loans or no education at all. VA home loan benefits, you won't qualify. The discharge you receive, usually other than honorable or worse, goes on every background check. Every job application has a box. Type of military discharge. You have to write it down. Employers see other than honorable discharge, and most won't call you back. A 2018 study found that veterans with other than honorable discharges have an unemployment rate of 88% in their first year out. That's not a typo. Almost 9 out of 10 can't find work. You're cut off from veteran support networks. Even other veterans distance themselves from deserters. You're alone. Both choices involve danger, but only one choice comes with a support system on the other side. Imagine you're standing on a bridge in the middle of a river. The bridge is shaking. It might collapse. You can see 2 shores. The left shore, to get there, you have to keep walking across this unstable bridge. It's frightening. The bridge sways with every step. You might fall, but if you make it across, there's a town on that shore. Houses, a hospital, jobs, people who will help you, a place to recover from the crossing. The right shore, the bridge going that direction, is also unstable, equally dangerous. But when you look at that shore, it's empty. No town, no hospital, no people, just an empty field. If you make it across, you're on your own. Both bridges are dangerous, but only one destination offers anything when you arrive. Which direction do you walk? You walk left, not because you're brave, not because you love bridges, but because if you're going to risk your life crossing an unstable bridge either way, you might as well walk toward the town instead of toward the empty field. Or think of it this way. Every morning, a soldier in a war zone wakes up and stands in front of 2 doors. Door A says, continue serving. Behind it, combat risk plus your monthly paycheck plus healthcare plus education benefits plus honorable discharge plus job prospects plus community plus respect. Door B says, quit today. Behind it, no more combat plus no paycheck plus no healthcare plus no education benefits plus dishonorable discharge plus unemployment plus isolation plus stigma. Both doors lead to risk, but door A comes with life support, door B comes with nothing. Which door do you open? You open door A not because you're patriotic, not because you're brave, but because door A is the only one that gives you a chance at life after you walk through it. This isn't just theory. Look at what actually happened during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Approximately 2 million US troops served in Iraq and Afghanistan between 2001 and 2023. About 7,000 died in combat. That's 0.35% of those who served. Of those who completed their service honorably, 78% found employment within a year of discharge. 92% eventually gained access to VA healthcare benefits. Now look at the other side. About 30,000 attempted to desert during the same period. Of those, roughly 8,000 successfully left and stayed gone. Of those 8,000, only about 12%, roughly 960 people, found stable employment in the first 5 years after leaving. The rest, many became homeless, many turned to crime, many died by suicide. Their unemployment rate remained above 80% for years. Do the math if you're a soldier trying to decide whether to stay or quit. Staying, 0.35% chance of death, 78% chance of employment after. Quitting, 0% chance of combat death, but 88% chance of unemployment, and all the dangers that come with poverty, isolation, and stigma. Statistically, staying is safer. Not safer from bombs, but safer for your life overall. That's the choice soldiers face, not courage versus cowardice, not patriotism versus selfishness, but one risky path with support versus another risky path with nothing. When you see it that way, the question isn't, why don't soldiers quit? The question is, why would they? We can reduce this to a single sentence. When people face 2 dangerous options, they choose the one the system rewards. Not the safer option, both options are dangerous, but the one where something waits for them on the other side. This isn't unique to soldiers. It's a pattern that shows up everywhere once you know to look for it. Think about someone working at a company with brutal hours, 80-hour weeks, a boss who screams, constant stress. They come home exhausted every night. Their health is deteriorating. They haven't seen their friends in months. This is dangerous. It's destroying their mental and physical health. Why don't they quit? Because quitting is also dangerous. They have rent to pay, student loans, maybe a family to support. The job market is tight. They might not find another position for months. Their CV has a gap now. Future employers ask, why did you leave your last job without having another one lined up? Staying is dangerous. Quitting is dangerous. But the system only rewards one choice: staying. As long as you stay, the paycheck keeps coming. Health insurance continues. Your resume shows continuous employment. The moment you quit, all of that stops. So they stay, not because they love the job, not because they're loyal to the company, but because staying is the less dangerous of two dangerous options. Someone is in a relationship that makes them miserable. Their partner is controlling, emotionally manipulative, occasionally cruel. They feel smaller every day. Their self-esteem has eroded. Friends have told them to leave. Staying is dangerous. It's destroying who they are. Why don't they leave? Because leaving is also dangerous. They've been with this person for 5 years. They've isolated themselves from old friends. Their social circle is now shared with their partner. If they leave, they're alone. They haven't been single in years. They don't remember how to date, how to be alone, how to rebuild. The partner has convinced them that no one else would want them anyway. What if that's true? Staying is dangerous. Leaving is dangerous. But the system only rewards one choice: staying. As long as you stay, you have companionship, however toxic. You have someone to text, someone to eat dinner with, someone who knows you. You're not alone. The moment you leave, you lose all of that. So they stay, not because they're in love, not because they're weak, but because staying is the less lonely of two lonely options. A student is drowning in loans. They've borrowed $80,000 to finish their degree. They're 2 years in with 2 years left. The debt is growing. They're barely sleeping, working part-time while taking a full course load, eating ramen because that's all they can afford. Continuing is dangerous. The debt keeps growing. Their health is suffering. Why don't they drop out? Because dropping out is also dangerous. If they quit now, they still owe $80,000, but without a degree. The job market for college dropouts pays $15 an hour if they're lucky. They'll never pay off that debt on those wages. Their earning potential is cut in half. Everyone will ask, why didn't you finish? The debt doesn't disappear, but the opportunity does. Continuing is dangerous. Quitting is dangerous. But the system only rewards one choice: finishing. As long as they stay enrolled, there's hope that the degree will unlock better jobs, higher pay, a way to eventually pay down the debt. The moment they quit, that hope vanishes. So they continue, not because they love school, not because they're passionate about their major, but because continuing is the only path that might lead somewhere other than permanent debt. So let's go back to the original question. Why don't soldiers quit when war starts? The common answer says, because they're brave, because they're patriotic, because they signed a contract and honor their word. But now we can see it differently. Soldiers don't quit because quitting is more dangerous than staying. Not more dangerous in the moment. Leaving a war zone is obviously safer than remaining in one, but more dangerous for everything that comes after. When a soldier stands in that war zone, weighing whether to stay or leave, they're not just thinking about today. They're thinking about next month, next year, the next decade. If they stay, they face combat. They might die. They might come home with PTSD. But if they survive, they come home to healthcare, education, job opportunities, a community, and a society that calls them a veteran with respect. If they leave, they escape the immediate danger, but they come home to nothing. No income, no healthcare, no education. A mark on their record that prevents them from building a normal life. Isolation, an unemployment rate of 88%. They traded the danger of war for the danger of social and economic death. When you see it this way, the soldier's choice isn't about courage, it's about calculation. We look at soldiers in combat and think, that person is so brave. But that soldier might be thinking, If I leave, I'm finished. If I stay, I at least have a chance. We see someone staying in danger and assume they must not feel fear. But they feel it, they're just more afraid of what happens if they leave. We interpret staying as evidence of extraordinary character. But it might just be evidence of an ordinary calculation. Between two bad options, choose the one that doesn't destroy your future. Picture that soldier again, in the war zone, bombs in the distance. Another casualty report just came in. They're exhausted, terrified, they want to go home. But they don't leave. We watch from a distance and say, look at their dedication, their sacrifice, their bravery. And maybe that's part of it. But maybe they're also thinking, I have 3 years left on my contract. If I finish, I get the GI Bill. I can finally go to college. My mom can use my VA benefits when I'm gone. I'll have something to put on job applications besides dishonorable discharge. I just have to make it through. It's not that courage doesn't exist. It's not that patriotism doesn't matter. It's that we might not need those explanations at all. When the system makes leaving more dangerous than staying, people stay. Not because of who they are, but because of where they are. This is how it looks when you see it differently. The soldier doesn't stay because of something inside them. They stay because of everything that waits outside, and how little of it there is on the other side of that choice.